Okay, I think we are live now. Just hold on for a few seconds and then we can kick off for anyone trying to catch up. So let's say in 1.5 minutes. So and then you can use this time to also let me know if you can hear my voice in the chat as well. Thank you. So I check the chat for feedback to see if it works. So before we get started, maybe you are here, you've heard of free and open source software, you'll be wondering what's all this about, and that's why you got the interest to watch this session. So all I'll require from you is to put in the chat as I speak, maybe fields or domains in which you will want to know more about free and open source software. The topic seems a bit large, but I'll try to cover um, a lot more within the time period. So as I speak or as I present, you can also put in the chat whatever you want to know or might be looking for in the free and open source software domain as well. Thank you. So doing that favor. Good. So we are live now, and seems everything is well, and on point. You can see the comments. Thank you. So good morning and welcome to my presentation, and I hope to convince you enough today to join the winners. And then if you already don't are not on the path of the winners, maybe this is the opportunity. So my name is Enock Seth Nyamador. I call myself an open source evangelist and an advocate for free and open source software. And today I speak in my capacity as a member of the Linux Accra user group. And this slide is available on the address on the slide. You can visit and grab it after the presentation or right away as well. And this slide, wherever, is licensed under Creative Commons by share alike 4.0 license, meaning you can reuse, and talk about that in a jiffy. So introduction. Now, when you take a look at this image, it looks complex and simple in a way. Complex because all modern digital infrastructure, even where you are watching this presentation now, or any other website to visit, tool you use, be it soft or maybe hard, on the computer. So we are focusing on software. So software that you use, you will see how complex or cumbersome this system is. It's funny and interesting that behind the scenes, there is a tiny foot, like a very thin foot, which is relying on a free and open source library, software or code that is being maintained and actively developed by someone who is in a very tight or like remote Ghana or somewhere in the world, not necessarily Nebraska, but as this image says, somewhere in Nebraska, somewhere in Accra, Ghana, nobody knows. But that is what this entire system relies on. So what I want you to put in your mind before we keep moving is you should be aware that every system that you use, most systems, modern systems, be it social networking website to complex application, you should have it at the back of your head that behind the scenes there is a tiny foot running on a library that is not being paid for, which is free and open source. And it talks about freedom, and which we'll look at. So quickly, let me use this time to tell you about Linux Accra Users Group. By far, Linux Accra Users Group is the oldest Linux user group. What we mean Linux user group is a community of enthusiasts, hobbies, professionals, and then people who have no idea about Linux and free and open source software in general. We are based in Accra. Linux Accra User Group has been in existence for the past 15 years, and we regularly meet at the Ghana India Kofi Annan ICT Center, AITI. Case you see in this picture, this was from Software Freedom Day celebration. and then we took a group picture in front of the center. So with COVID now, we no longer meet for some time now, but we hope that when this is all over, anytime you visit Accra or you are in Accra Saturday, do well to pass by and then grab something for yourself in free and open source software. Now, why does free and open source software matter, or why? What is this really about that we keep talking here? Open source, free and open source. What does it really mean? So in the early days of software, let's say in the 1950s, I don't know how it was then, but I can still speak to it. You know, in all, you could see that science, computer science, and corporate researchers were the producers or developers of software. Through this software development or creation was a collaborative process, and today as well, open source software relies on collaboration of a team, global, a whole pool of people to work. And when computing, we talk about source code. So every software that you use or you run, behind it, there is a source code. Something has been written and then transformed into the application you see. There are a set of instructions that a computer understands. So source code in the early days of software was generally distributed from the computer science academics to corporates, and then IBM share user group. IBM has been in the picture for a long time in talking about free and open source software. And then when you look at source code should be accessible. What free and open source, right? Meaning that you should be able to read this source code. But when you take a compiled software that is closed and given to you, so that's like a package that you can't see what is inside. All you see in the end is zeros and ones, because computers understand zeros and ones. Now, let me take you back a bit. Back in 1976, when open source software, the hobbies were getting involved, putting things together and making it accessible, software accessible to one popular guy we all know, Bill. He wrote an open letter to hobbies saying, "Your sharing is stealing." We all know Microsoft. We all use some kind of, at a point in time in our life, maybe we've come across a Microsoft Windows operating system or product from Microsoft that we have used. It could be that it's forced on us or we use it willingly. So in 1999, there was a case in the US where the US Justice Department said Microsoft is a monopolist and is engaged in massive anti-competitive practice that harmed innovation and limited consumer choice. Why you are forced, Microsoft forced the stuff on you. You have Windows, the updates come, you have no control over it, the updates get installed, but it doesn't allow you to see behind or what is going on outside. Now, this is interesting from Richard Stallman. Like, the most fundamental way of helping other people is to teach them how to do things better themselves and how to better their lives. So for people who use computers, that means sharing. If you use computer to make things better for yourself and somebody teach you, we need to share what we know and what we learn, be it a program or the skill or whatever is involved. Now, Stormer defined the free software. When we talk about free software and when we celebrate Software Freedom Day, we promote the 4 freedoms. That is, you should be able. So software has so maybe 4 freedoms, but to say freedom 0 is you should be able to use this software, that is, run it anywhere regardless. You should be able to study it. Study meaning that you can tinker with it, play around with it, do further stuff with it, look deep into it, see what is behind this software, what is running behind it. This is only accessible when you have access to the source code. And you should be able to distribute, share with a colleague. Imagine you prepared pasta and then this pasta was interesting and I want to prepare the same. What will you do? I ask you for the recipe. You will not tell me that this recipe is closed. You don't have permission to share this recipe. So this is food, this is sharing, and then you should be able to improve the program. So free as in freedom, we say, but not free beer. Beer is alcoholic. When you take more free beer, somewhere getting back home might be an issue, but when you say freedom, it's a different thing altogether. So when we talk about software, free software or free and open source software, boils down to licenses, because there are varieties of software, by is dependent on the licensing which this software falls, how this software is given out to the world, how it's made available publicly. Popular is the GPL license, the GNU GPL is basically the 4 freedoms plus copyleft, meaning share alike. Release a software into the public. You might be asking, yeah, software is expensive. Why should I sit down and develop a software and then give it out for free? We'll come to that in a few minutes. There are other licenses as well. Now, so back in 98, because of the word free software, people put value to the word free. Free here, it means in French, you say libre. So it doesn't mean that you are not paying for free software. So Stallman, yeah, co-change, decided to call it here open source because it sounds better. That's why we have the open source software, free and open source software, free, libre, open source software. So non-free software means that the code is secret. You don't understand. You can't see the instruction set behind this software, what is being put together to make the software what it is. But with free software, you have the 4 levels of freedom, and you are able to see the source code. You are happy. Everyone is happy. There's a feature that you need, and it's not in this software. You are able to improve upon it, provided you have the technical know-how, or you could pay someone with the technical know-how to do same. So let's look at some categories of this. These are generally most categories here: free and open source software, with the columns based on freedom, source code, modification, down to anti-features. You see, yes being for only free and open source software. Yeah, the one that we use mostly, a lot of us mostly use the proprietary ones, but there's a lot to it. If you're sharing a copy of Microsoft Windows with your friend, with your license, you should know that you are infringing upon the copyright, and then you could be charged for that. And down to hardware, which is typically very ads intensive. Yeah, some softwares that we install, be it on our phones or PCs, and you get bombarded with a lot of ads. So when we talk about anti-features, some of these include copy protection, meaning you can redistribute advertisement, down to tracking and spyware. So when you look at, I don't know how many of us have looked at the CD for a typical operating system, Microsoft, or this is Ubuntu 7.0 some years back. On the disk, you could see that you are freely allowed legally to copy, redistribute, and modify. But for that of a proprietary system, Microsoft said you do not, its emphasis, lend or make illegal copies. When you make copies, it's illegal. Now, in 1991, a computer science student called Linus Torvalds took up something as a hobbyist. Just like he sent a message to this Minix mailing list that I'm doing a free operating system. This is just a hobby, yeah? It won't be big. Yeah, that was what he said then, professional. Like GNU, then there was the GNU, Linux, the GNU operating system then, but so yeah, not professional. But Linux operating system, the Linux kernel, which Torvalds started, has been joined with. That's why you see GNU Linux. So with GNU tools combined with the Linux kernel, has been a transformation factor, like catalyst to a lot of things. So one comment Torvalds himself made is like making the Linux kernel GPL. That means releasing the GNU public license was definitely the best thing he ever did. And some comments from him also say that open source is just a superior way of working together and generating code. And it's based on previous knowledge, like science, people could build solid tools without some silly hiding. That is some things in the background tracking you or watching you in some way. So you obviously can never do well in a closed system like open scientific methods. Yeah, science research is open. Scientific methods are open. We all can recollect the scientific method some way. If this was closed, it would never have been in the textbooks or available for us to read. So with the Linux kernel, there have been a whole lot of development, a lot of expositions from the Linux distributions. Linux distributions are basically operating systems based on the Linux kernel. So every operating system, Microsoft Windows, Mac, Android, and so on and so forth, has a kernel. The kernel is at the base of the operating system, which connects your software, running the application softwares and other stuff to the hardware, the processor, and the other stuff directly. So the Linux kernel, which is the foundation of this operating system, is in the public domain. That is a GPL license. So it means it could be taken by anyone, modified, and then redistributed. So you have distributions like the Debian, the Red Hat, the Mandrake, and so on and so forth. Now, some of us use, or most of us use the Android-based smartphones. This is from Start Counter as of yesterday when I checked. You could see that the market share for Android is far higher than any other compared operating systems. Now, Android is the operating system. Android is based on the Linux kernel. It's based on a modified version of Linux kernel. Of course, Android is from Google, and so on and so forth. Because the Android kernel is GPL, this binds Google to release Android, some Android, not some, but the Android version. There's an Android open source version. So anybody could pick this, modify it, to either harden it or make it better, or try to do some other stuff. I remember there was a cyanogen mode and some other stuff. And with the trades wars and the stuffs happening, we all know the Huawei story. You could tell that without Android being open source, Huawei is typically dead because it's based on the Linux kernel. Huawei could go make a copy in computing, or say fork a copy of the open source version of the Android, which Google must release because of the bindings of the GPL license, which says modify, release, share. You also make it available in the same license. So not only does Linux power a lot of phones from the Android in your handheld, but as of today, 100% of the world top 500 supercomputers run on Linux. What does that tell you? That brings us to why you should use free, libre, and open source software. Now, this from FOSS, which is the free open source free software and open source foundation for Africa. This is very interesting because we are talking about digital skills for Africa, and let's take this for a second. It says Africa can bridge the digital divide by adopting open source, thus narrowing the effect of techno-colonialism. We talk about colonialism and other stuff, but with free and open source software, in the subtitle of my slide, you see it's a global playing field and working field, because it's the same Firefox, it's the same VLC media player. There is no VLC media player that is specifically developed for Europe or specifically developed for America. So need for technology that is controlled by locals. So with free and open source software, everyone has the capabilities or the possibility to tinker and modify stuff, because with this, we can now have local experts. It's a public property, and then it's a social good and empowers people to be self-reliant and better off on their own. So also, in order to stay in control, you need to understand what this software, what my software is able to do for me, because you own a machine, you own what you are running. The machine doesn't own you. So if you don't stay in control, whatever you are running controls you instead. And so let's take this scenario. Will you accept tools with this rule? We all know paperclip. Paperclip, easy, flexible. You can play around it and then transform the shape, whatever you want to do. Imagine you are forbidden to modify this paperclip or paperclip. Will you be happy? Or let other people use your hammer, just all in to remove nails, and then tell others what is written in this book. You are forbidden to tell people, maybe you read a story or you watch a movie, and you are forbidden to tell people, oh, you share stories or share what you've seen on vacation or other stuff. And so why do you accept? Why do you accept the rules for software? They are all tools, software tools. You are forbidden to copy, reverse engineer, modify, use it in certain circumstances, it's used in certain countries. There's no restriction that you can use a VLC. VLC can be used everywhere in the world. Firefox, of course, you use everywhere because it's free and open source. So if there are some software, because you have a vendor lock-in, it's proprietary, you are not allowed to copy, like I mentioned, citing Microsoft Windows, CD, and Ubuntu as an example. Yeah, you stay secure. Yeah, you can't trust software if its source code is hidden. Yeah, a lot of people have this, we'll get to that, this perceived barrier or assumption or myth that free and open source software is porous because you don't have support, it's not company. Yeah, we'll get to that soon. So from 2001, that's let's say 19 years ago, in this echelon system case issue, the European Parliament decided on this. This was from the investigation. And one interesting part you should know is only those operating systems should be used. Because if a system is to be taken seriously, only operating system those should be used whose source code has been published and checked. So it means the source code should be publicly available, checked, and since it can only be determined with certainty that happens to the data. Because let's take an operating system which has a source code closed. You don't know what is embedded from the Snowden releases. We realize that some operating systems have given top priority to some institutions to be able to look behind the scene. Now, this is very interesting also. Bruce Schneier, an American cryptographer, it says that only bad system relies on secrecy, because if you talk about secrets, it doesn't mean that the system is required. So you demand open source code for everything related to security when we talk about security. And you could see that even in the security sector, from cyber security to whatever, there are a lot of open source tools. When you speak to a cyber security expert, he tells you, yeah, we use this open source tool. What does that tell you? Expertise is needed. And then you avoid data locking and vendor locking, improve interoperability. Now, when you are using a third-party application or software, this company designs the formats, that are closed, that it's only accessible with, can only be opened or used with their software. Meaning that when you decide to switch or decide to make a big leap in the future for an alternative, you have issues because their software is the only readily available tool to open these file formats. So in order to avoid vendor locking and data locking, and then improving interoperability, we use tools that support open standards for interoperability's sake. Now, with free and open source software, it's easy to localize and customize. Of course, we talk about Linux distributions. You have a plethora of desktop environments. This is new to most people coming from Windows. When we talk about desktop environments, whenever you turn on your computer, all you see is a start menu or in the corner there. But with Linux distributions, there is this opportunity to jump from one desktop environment to another. So there are desktop environments from the Genome, KD, LXD, XFC, a whole lot of them, and they all come with their sweetness. So with free and open source software, not only Linux desktop environment, but the software itself. Look at Firefox, look at VLC. You have the ability to tinker, modify, and you have the opportunity to translate this into your local language. Now, free and open source software tools are mostly cross-platform. Take, for example, I've mentioned Firefox and VLC in this presentation more than any other word so far. Who doesn't know about Firefox? Who doesn't know about VLC? It doesn't only run on one operating system. It runs on multiple operating systems. And free and open source software is fun and learning. It is challenging, and then it's a new field. It's something that you learn, and it's not only fun, but because Linux is a benchmark of quality, that tells you that modularity and lightweight solutions allow to use small and low devices. Because sometimes people bring people with at Linux Accra or meetups, when you use old hardware, the new systems we have now, maybe new operating system, take for example, maybe Windows 10, Windows Vista, like the more the operating system goes higher, you see that the higher system resources is required. And a recent Linux operating system release from Ubuntu with XFC desktop should be able to run on a PC that is almost 10 years old with smoothness. Now, you also save energy and you don't use personal operating system in multi-user environment. The LTSP server project, interesting, which Mr. Santi has the other colleagues at Linux Accra never joke with and laugh so much, and have been trying to implement something in this field for some time now. This basically, what does the LTSP server project does? When you take a look at a library or a school computer lab, instead of having individual sets of PCs, you could have the Linux terminal server, which is just a one system, but with shared system resources. So it means you have several monitors on the table with several mouse, keyboard, but they are all tapping into just one system, one network drive, one network. So they are all on the network. That is how it works. So you don't use your computer. We save a lot of energy. Imagine having all system units, let's say 100 system units, and you can relate. It reduces costs as well. Yeah, this is an interesting, funny joke about PC users, operating system users. Yeah, if there's a new update, for me as a Linux user, I say, yeah, this is cool stuff, more free stuff. Then I run one line of command or I just click some buttons and I get an update. Notwithstanding that, I have to authorize that this should be installed. I need to input a password. Yeah, for Windows users, I've had several times friends and colleagues have run into issues. It's like, oh, well, my Windows updated now, I can log in. The login screen is flashing. You have some kind of issue. So maybe for the guys who pay a lot, maybe it's only maybe $99. And even though Linux is for hobbies, is for enthusiasts, it doesn't mean that you can't make money. And not Linux, free and open source, doesn't mean that you can't make money. It's also about a lot of business opportunities. Now, the 7 open source business opportunity strategies for competitive advantage. This was published in 2004. Companies or institutions knowing that there are free and open source alternatives or libraries or tools that they could use to build up their system, to start their systems based on this infrastructure. Knowing, still spend a lot of time and resources on going for the proprietary ones, because you believe that the more you pay, the more secure a system is. And you should know the big guys, most of the big guys rely on free and open source software to run the architecture. Yes, IBM, see, in the beginning was one of the first lights. IBM, of course, has been in the free and open source sphere for a very long time. A lot of people in the computing or the developer sphere like a lot of ThinkPad, because yeah, ThinkPad came from the IBM brand before it was purchased by Lenovo. So I think last 2 years, Red Hat was acquired by IBM. It's not surprising. So Red Hat is a free and open source company and operating system, and then their model is one of the interesting ones, telling you that with free and open source software, it doesn't mean that there's no money involved. And with better support from community, and that is easier troubleshooting because of transparency, of course. Quickly, we'll take a look at some free and open source software examples, and then maybe in domains or whatever you are doing from academia, multimedia. So quickly, yeah, Mozilla File VLC, excuse me, is one I've spoken most about in the multimedia. VLC, Audacity, and KDN Live OpenShot. These are softwares we before VLC, it was really difficult to play several kind of codecs from maybe some proprietary codecs or some other stuffs. It was really difficult. If you have used Windows Media Player on maybe Windows 98, you can relate to how you could suffer before playing some kind of files. But with VLC now, you just install one software and you're able to run thousands of media formats thanks to free and open source software such as maybe MPlayer, which supports several formats. Audacity for audio editing. People in the audio industry, radio, know about Audacity and use it for recording, personal and other stuff. And KND for video editing as well. Yeah, web browser. Yeah, Firefox, most mentioned here. Firefox is free and open source, and a lot of other browsers are based on Firefox as well because the source code is open. Now, to the right, you see something which looks familiar to Google Chrome users. Yes, this is Chromium. So Chromium is the open source project from which Google Chrome is built as well. So you could tell that, yeah, the big guys also use and release open source software as well. For content management system, yeah, the probability that website you are accessing today, most websites you visit in a day are running on WordPress is very high. It could be Drupal or Typo3, which is really common in Europe as well. Now, in these COVID times where everything seems to be remote and a lot of live streaming going on, even with this conference inclusive, OBS project is by far, compared to none, maybe I would say, the VLC for streaming, because it's also supported by Facebook and some other guys as well. Check the obsproject.com, because OBS is really powerful. You could use it to mix, record, not only for streaming, but you could record, mix videos on the fly, put text on them, and do a whole lot of stuff in OBS. Just coming to Geo, where personally a lot of my interest lies. We talk about QGIS. If you do geospatial, GIS, whatever, QGIS is the most advanced, popular, open source graphical desktop GIS information system available. And OSGeo, the Open Source Geospatial Foundation, which promotes, supports, and incubates projects in geospatial domain to be accessible, like free and open source for geospatial. GDAT, an interesting library which is used by both proprietary and open source software as well. Leaflet. Office, maybe you're starting a small business, you want to use free and open source software entirely. Yeah, you get a operating system, maybe Arch or Ubuntu, Fedora, whatever. By default, it's automatic that you have a LibreOffice, not Arch, of course, off the shelf, like maybe Ubuntu or Fedora. You should have a LibreOffice package pre-installed. And the beauty with Linux distributions is that you could run them live without installation. So imagine you have an old hardware desktop PC without a hard drive in it, and you could boot from a pen drive. All you need to do is mount this and then boot from it, and still be able to access the web and do whatever you want to do with much ease. So this presentation, like you see, was prepared using LibreOffice Impress, 100% free and open source software. I was going to use the tech project, but at some point there was no time for me to type more, so I just switched quickly to drag and drop to complete this slide. So the LaTeX project is an interesting one. You'll find it most common with the academia, scientists, and most everyone for high quality typesetting and publishing. So LaTeX project is really an interesting one of my favorites I discovered back in university, thanks to my supervisor. Yes, with the remote distance learning model, which is by far also maybe the VLC for learning management systems, is really important and available, used by most institutions, top institutions around the world to deliver online learning in classrooms to students. Excuse me. There are many more. We can't talk about all free and open source software solutions in 1 hour or for everyone, but I believe this should give you an overview, a basic one. So some of them GIMP, Thunderbird for email, R for static own cloud. It's much or less like your own cloud. Yeah, you have your own cloud to store stuff, to deploy. My friend Rexford was going to talk about this But notwithstanding, you need to find out more. Just get in touch with Linus Accra and will help you. So to find more extensive lists from Wikipedia, of course, Wikipedia relies on free and open source software called the MediaWiki. The entire Wikipedia is based on MediaWiki, which is free and open source software as well. So check the Wikipedia page for a list of free and open source software. Now, I've mentioned this, still thinking that why open source, I'm fine with my proprietary, so I have money to pay. Fine, if you have money to pay for the license, of course, you are good to go. But if you don't have money to pay and you pirate, why pay when it is free? Yeah, you know, infrastructure of most large companies from Google to Facebook and think of them run on free and open source software as well. And this interesting tweet I picked some time ago by Google Earth. Most of you might know of Google Earth, Google Maps. GDAL I spoke of is used by Google, and Google says it makes the world go round. How much less you and I. So in your institution or in your daily life, how often do you use free and open source software? And where is your country or our countries in Africa don't have a free and open source policies? For me, my country, Ghana, none I've come across, of course. Maybe this scripts you looks funny or you don't still get it. Now, let's look at this reason. The reason why people don't use open source or only free and open source software is the perceived barrier, the fear of falling off the cliff. You know, or maybe you buy a system or you purchase a computer and then it comes with pre-installed non-free software, so you have no option or you have no idea, you don't know about it. And then the fear, uncertainty, and doubt of the quality, features, support to community and requirements to participate. Now, we are always open, the free and open source community, wherever is open to anyone. And then you could just ask for help anytime something Linus Accra does. And then some feel that the transition cost, the limited in-house expertise, maybe a company say we don't have people with the skills. You need to get the skill. The skill is gained through sharing. That is why it's a community of practice. And maybe because of monopoly of someone or secret format or protocols, a vendor lock-in, you already use a system that the format you use cannot be, it's not interoperable with other free and open source software. Now, this is something that is really, really confusing, and then people use it a lot to justify that if you pay, and if you pay more, the system is secure and fast. No, that payment or money does not determine the security or quality of software. Now, it is said if you can't beat them, yeah, what do? It's either you join them or you buy them. Yeah, in the beginning, you could see some slides about Microsoft in the beginning. They thought Linux and open source was a cancer, of course. But last year or last 2 years, GitHub, which is a code sharing website, maybe it's social networking for codes, and mostly they are free and open source tools and software developed and hosted on GitHub. And Microsoft bought GitHub for $7.5 billion. What does that tell you? It tells you that if you can't beat them, you can't catch up with them, what you have to do is maybe buy. So you see, because of this, sometimes some projects which are really stemmed in the FOSS principles have to migrate and then move their repositories because it's believed, Microsoft who is not FOSS, but Microsoft is learning and has transitioned over the time, but yes, still time will tell. And Visual Studio Code, VS Code, which is an open source code editor from Microsoft, I use it, is an interesting one as well. So yeah, Microsoft has learned and is learning, and I've seen the possibilities and advantages of free and open source software. And then if they couldn't join, they bought, and then they contribute to some part of it. But yes, still history, it cannot be overwritten. Yeah, so let's come quickly to Ghana. In Ghana, I'll just tell you about the Kofi Annan ICT Center is a very STEM institution in free and open source software. That was the first center I've ever been to that I could see a full lab of computers running on Ubuntu desktop. some years ago, and it still continues and grows. So last year, this year, or maybe last year, one of them, the center released the NOS, that is the Nyansampo OS, which is a very interesting. Ghana-focused countries have transitioned to their own homegrown Linux-based operating systems for schools, for institutions. Some of our textbooks are written to suit or written with free proprietary softwares in mind. Meanwhile, the primary school in a village somewhere, not only in Ghana, but across the continent, does not have the funds needed to purchase a license. What does that tell you? The software is being pirated or some other stuff. But with free and open source software in our hands, we are competing, not competing, we are playing and tinkering and exploring opportunities on a global level, not only in country or locally. This presentation is highly motivated and inspired by Professor Frederick. You could check that slide out. It's a modified version, but you could check that one also out. And I would like to pause here, say thank you. You can reach me out on the email, and the slide is still here. The link to the slide is here. This presentation was made with 100% free and open source software, LibreOffice, an Arch Linux operating system, and GIMP. Let the force be with you. I will check the chat now for questions, and then if there are any demonstrations I need to do, we can quickly catch up with that before our time elapses. Good. Okay, so I just stopped sharing my screen and respond to the questions in the chat. So from the beginning, hey Janet, happy to have you here. Okay, sure. To join your session as well, maybe no problem. I'm fine. Yeah, Janet, thank you for joining. Geoffrey at this OpenStreetMap community as well. Users of free and open source a lot. We promote free and open data, and it's mapping the whole world from scratch. Yeah, free and open source continues. Janet, we have when you are spreading your last year, no, last 2 years before COVID, even though the Linux user group is based in Accra, everyone could play a role. So if you're in your remote village and then you still need to start a Linux user group, of course, you get in touch with the Linux Accra user group, because we mostly meet at the center. Last 2 years, we had Software Freedom Day across 3 locations in the country, because the center now has one in Bolgatanga and in Sunyani as well. So if you are based in Bolga or Sunyani, you should find the Kofi Annan ICT Center working anytime. All these centers are highly free and open source software dependent. So yeah, Accra is an issue though, but yeah, of course, we can always work something out. The community is global. We have an online group on Telegram and a mailing list. You can find out from our website. Get in touch. You need help, just type in. Somebody is going to respond. What are you doing to promote OS and Linux every day using schools and the office? So there's no policy on free and open source software in Ghana. Maybe an African country, I have no idea about that, but most African countries, we don't have a policy, a working policy approved by the parliament or government to use free and open source software. And Kofi Annan ICT Center in Ghana, I'm aware, has been pushing this, and have been in this. You could see I presented the Nyansampo OS, which was developed by Kofi Annan ICT Center and based on Debian as well. So I think with time, I don't know when, but with time, our textbooks are based on proprietary softwares, which cannot even be afforded by a teacher or a student. The cost of one proprietary license could build 5 school buildings. So I don't know why we still have those in our textbooks, but time will definitely tell. Bernard, if you can type in English, I don't know what language you are typing in. Okay, so I think we do not have much time, but if any question you have, just get in touch with the Linux Accra user group or my personal email on the slide. I posted the slide link. I can put it in the chat again for anyone who still didn't grab it. So yeah, that is the link to the slide. and let's get in touch. All right. Thank you very much. And if no further question, I think we can just say bye bye now, or maybe what else can I share? What else do I have off my head to share now? I think there is anything much. Maybe you could spend some time to read about the history of free and open source software. It might not be important to some people, but if you are a user or you're part of the community, you should know where the community started from and how things started and where things are going. Also, in Africa, there is the free software for free software and open source for FOSS. I think I encourage everyone to join. FOSS has been away for some time now, but there have been volunteer efforts to make things running. So yeah, check Telegram or the website fossfar.net. Or if you couldn't find, just search on the web, you find, and then everyone should participate, because it's only through the community and collaborative approach that we can all use our voice and location wherever we are to improve or make free and open source software policies available in our country. Okay, Princess, kindly, yeah, someone asked about QGIS. What is that question? What is it? Okay, is someone asked about it. Okay, Francis says QGIS. He didn't ask any question, just a QGIS. Maybe I can ask. QGIS is free, and you can just go to qgis.org or just type QGIS tutorials in your favorite search engine and find more. It's for treating, processing, and doing a lot with the geospatial data, creating maps, several stuff. Window, okay, bonjour. Bonjour, that's all. Okay, why do you see FOSS? Yeah, Enoch, please have a question. Why do you see FOSS in the 5 to 10 years? Free and open source software in the next 5 to 10 years. I will answer the question based on in Africa. Yeah, so in Africa, maybe in Ghana, for me, I still think, or I believe we need a lot of evangelists and a lot of people in power, the policymakers, the politicians, the parliamentarians. Someone needs to get in there who understands what free and open source is, because we could make every attempt and every start, but in our own little ways. That you could see Linus Accra for the past 15 years, we've organized Software Freedom Day, we've created awareness, even though we've not reached every corner of the country, it's still ongoing. And FOSS as well is doing, and several communities you could join as well. So for me personally, it's just more growth, more awareness, more community strength, and more sharing, more learning. Because yeah, 2 years or 3 years ago, when I was doing a presentation, it was 95 or 98%. I look at one of my old presentations of the world top computers that were running supercomputers, 500, 100 were running Linux. But today, 100% of the world topmost computers fastest are running Linux. So it tells you it's more growth and growth to growth. Please, will our dashboard and during conference be active after our session ends? I don't know. If I close this, I'm sure the session should close. You just have to go back to wherever you found this session, then the welcoming stage. That's the program for today, and look for the next program to join. Yeah. Yeah. Any other? Yeah. Thank you, Geoffrey. For the question. Why do you see first? Okay, your first question was repeated by Emmanuel, and please don't have a question. Oh, any other question? No other question. Maybe the field in which you work, you think you don't have alternatives to software you use for your work now. yeah, you could get in touch. I'm ever happy, ready to respond. If I have no idea, it's a community. Nobody knows it all. I will definitely get in touch or connect you with somebody who has, or we'll all find out together and learn together. Alika, your question says, okay, when we talk about this, so I think I spoke about security. 100% security is never assured. The most secured system is, we say, is the one that is turned off, battery removed, it's not connected to an internet, even though it's turned off. So, so far as a system is online or is active running, even if it's not connected to the internet, is somehow insecure. So there is nothing 100% security. If you are paying more for software, doesn't mean that you have 100% security. So just take note of that. So yeah, security is 100% not assured. But trust me, I've been living on free and open source software for almost 10 to 8 years, and is it that is it. Free and no proprietary, no maybe some proprietary solutions, but as time goes on, because some work I do or some stuff I do requires it. So, please, okay. So I think we are going off in a few minutes. So thank you very much for joining, and I hope to see you soon. Maybe sometime after COVID is over in Accra, at Linus Accra Meetup, or yeah, in the Linus Accra channels. Okay, thank you, and then enjoy the rest of the conference and sessions. Ciao, ciao.